So the first thing I think we should do is go over to our defaults example info plist. That's going to be under the resources folder. So let's select that. And you can see here that we have a bundle identifier. It has com.yourcompany. And then a replacement variable at the end. This will be substituted when the application is built to be the name of your application. So let's double click on this, and I'm going to change your company to Alan Craig, and you change it to your company name or your name. And then I'm going to save this. And now when this gets built, this file will go into the preferences folder, and it'll have com.alancraig.defaultsexample.plist. Now, if you don't do this, when you look in your preferences folder, you're going to see a bunch of files that say com.yourcompany. And then the application name. Okay, so back over to our app delegate file. And the first thing we want to do when setting up defaults is we want to register our defaults first. Now, register defaults are the defaults that are within your application, and it's what you set up in this initial method. These values are not saved to file until a user makes a change to them. And anytime they want to go back to factory defaults, if you provide a way, these are the defaults that will be set. Now there's a class method called initialize that gets called on every class. So we're going to put a plus sign since this is a class method, and it's going to be void because it doesn't return a value. And we'll just say initialize. And this is where we're going to set up our factory user defaults. So the way we get an instance of NSUserDefault is we type NSUserDefault, and then we'll give it a variable. I'm just going to say userDefaults. And NSUserDefaults has a class method called standardUserDefaults. Now, if you want to see this in the documentation, hold down your Option key, and you'll get a little plus for your cursor, and then double click on the word, the class file that you want to go to the documentation and have it search for that value. This little window pops up, and on the right hand side we have a small book icon. So just click it, and it'll open up the documentation and automatically do a search and go right to that class file. And if we look over on the left hand side, over under Table of Contents, just toggle open the tasks, and we can see getting the shared user defaults instance. Click on that. And you'll see right here on the right-hand side, standard user defaults. And our tooltip says returns the shared defaults object. If we look down a little bit further, we can see register defaults. This is what we're going to use in just a minute. We can get values using array for key, bool for key, data for key, dictionary, all these different ways to get values. Then we have setting values, removing objects, and the list goes on. So you can spend quite a while in here just looking over all these methods that NSUserDefaults provides. I'm going to minimize this window using Command M just to get that out of our way. So now that we have an instance of user defaults, I'm going to create a string to put into the defaults. And I'll call this variable websites. And I'm going to use the string with string method. And the first one I'll put in is VTC. I'm going to go to the next line. Objective-C is white space and different, so we can put these on multiple lines. And then I just close it off with a brace and a semicolon. Now if we look at the way this string is going to format right now, it's just going to squish the VTC.com right up against the HTTP on the next line. To keep that from happening, I'm going to put in a backslash and an N. And this is the new line character. So in a string, in our NS text view, when it gets to the end of this line, it'll automatically put in a new line, just as if you'd hit the return key on the keyboard. Okay, so we've created our string, and now we need to create a dictionary to put our string in, because NSUserDefaults needs a dictionary. So I'm going to say dictionary defaults. I'm going to use the class method dictionary with objects and keys. And now that I've just started typing dictionary, I'm going to hit the escape key. It's going to pull up a completion window for me, showing me the methods that have this name associated with it. The more I type, the more narrowed down this list will get. Since I can see the one I'm looking for, I'm just going to arrow down to it, hit the return key, and as we saw in a previous video, dictionary with objects and keys takes an object first. So our object is going to be the website string, and the key that we're going to use is URLs. I'm going to terminate that with nil, close off the brace, and a semicolon. Now we have an instance of NSUserDefaults. We have an NS string called websites, which contain our two URL strings. And now we've created a dictionary called defaults that has one object, websites, and one key, URLs. The last thing we need to do is say user defaults, register defaults, and give it the defaults dictionary that we just created. So now when our application first starts up, we'll have these values available to us that we can use later in our code. And that's what we're going to do next.